Welcome, everyone, to a late evening edition of the Donovan Live Postgame Show. Dave DiNatale along with Jim Donovan. Good to have everybody here on the Freddie Kitchens finally got introduced Monday after about a week of speculation, Jimmy. It finally happened today, and I'm curious first because you got to hear him speak to the media at the podium, but you got some one-on-one time with him, as we've posted now at WKYC.com. Big takeaways from Freddie Kitchens today, the new Browns head coach.
So far, I mean, Freddie has not changed at all in the week that he gets a new title with a lot more responsibility than any title he's had within the Browns organization, be it running backs coach or interim offensive coordinator. I mean, so the massiveness of the job title hasn't changed him at all. I think what you saw in the press conference, if you saw it or listened to it, that's what you get. I mean, he is what he is. The difference was he had a shirt and tie on rather than his orange hooded dog pound sweatshirt. So I think that's good. I think that's the charm of Freddie Kitchens. I think what probably won over the committee when he sat in the interview process, I mean, there's just that kind of, down home in a really good way, that he's a good guy. He works hard,
yes,
and he believes in that. And I think that you see the fruits of his hard work, that he just kind of keeps his head down and he works.
Yeah.
And he works through a problem, and he works through a slump offensively, or he works through a bad game. When he was the running backs coach, when Nick Chubb had a rough first preseason game, he worked through that. He worked through getting Duke Johnson a role, and he obviously worked day to day and a lot of hours with Baker Mayfield. And it works.
Yes.
The body of work kind of says the sum of all the parts is that he gets the job done. And he doesn't get it done with a lot of flair. He just gets it done with a lot of work. And I think that part of him is going to remain constant. But he's very, very down to the point where, hey, listen, got to win.
Yeah.
This team is ready to win. He didn't want people to be overly accepting of the 7-8-1 record. And I have to tell you, this is a town that threw a parade for an 0-16 team. But, I liked everything I heard. And believe me, it's not anything different whether you're talking to him one-on-one or if he's talking to a crowded room.
I go back to when this coaching search began, and you laid out a lot of what the Browns were going to be looking for, and what was going to be something that was going to be, I think, important for the fans, is that whoever the coach is, whoever they were going to hire, was going to be somebody that the fans could relate to. And Freddie Kitchens, more than anybody else maybe except for Greg Williams, but as much as Williams or more than anybody else, I mean, Freddie Kitchens is someone that he looked like he could be a Browns fan. Except for the fact today he was wearing, they made him put the suit on today, although he had the hat. I mean, he looks like he could be a fan. He talks like he could be a fan. He has memories of Cleveland growing up. He talked about that today, growing up in Alabama, following the Browns back then.
Right.
He is somebody that I think fans can really embody as one of their own when they look at him and hear him talk.
Yeah, I think so. And of course, we have the advantage of knowing him a little bit better than we did anybody in the field, aside from Greg Williams, like you said. But I don't think none of us know a great deal about Kevin Stefanski.
Correct.
We don't know a great deal about Dan Campbell. Maybe a little bit more about him because he was an interim head coach. We don't know a great deal about Matt Eberflus or any of these guys that they interviewed, and I understand that. But you got to also remember, in today's culture in the NFL, a lot of those guys never have the opportunity to talk to the media because of this everything close to the vest in the NFL. Whereas Freddie, even if he's close to the vest, you don't realize how close it is to the vest, and it doesn't appear to be, skin tight close to the vest, because he really is pretty open. He's a conversational guy. He likes to talk about football. He's got a neat way of explaining it, which I think fans really appreciate, because a lot of people in the NFL nowadays talk over everybody's heads.
Yes.
It's like you're sitting with a specialist at a hospital, and it really is a game. I mean, it really is a game. And I'm not saying he dumbs the game down, but he makes it very understandable for everybody. And I would imagine for his players.
Yeah, it's not pretentious. It's just real down to earth. And it's just, you sit there and you go, okay, I know what he's trying to say. I feel like I have a grasp of what he's trying to do. He talked to you when you asked him at the very last question. It's like, hey, what's it going to be like when you get up and you address your team for the first time as head coach? And after he had one of his little Freddie Kitchens quips, like, I don't know, you'll have to listen in.
Yeah. Right.
He talked about the very simple but very important core values that he's going to want this team to embody.
Yeah.
And again, you can put all the analytics you want into stuff. When it comes, you sit there and you talk about your respect and truth and honesty and all those things that he wants his team to embody. Well, everybody can get behind that. It's easy to understand. It's easy to root for down at First Energy Stadium.
It is, and I think that when you go back and take a look at the dysfunction that happened this year, I mean, as great as it was, the ride at the end of the year, the beginning of the year was not great.
Right.
And the more you find out about the first 8 games and the time spent in training camp, and you got a window of that, you got an opportunity to look through a window of that through Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
Hard Knocks really showed a lot of the warts and dysfunction that the Browns had going. So the beginning of the year was not good. There wasn't truth. There wasn't trust.
Right.
There wasn't a great deal of respect.
That was trust. That was another one, trust.
Yeah, and I think really they did develop that as the season went along. So this team that looked like maybe a 3-win team, at one point became a 5-3 team at the end of the season, and maybe a kick away or a bad call going the other way and the right way if it had been called correctly. Being a 6-2 team, maybe a 7-1 team down the stretch, and that's pretty good. I mean, that got the Philadelphia Eagles into the playoffs when they went 6-1 down the stretch, and the Browns were certainly on the cusp of doing that. But I think a lot of that started inside.
Right.
Inside the building, because I don't think the building was working the right way.
I don't either.
With the combination of Hugh Jackson and apparently Todd Haley.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Those last 8 games, I mean, we're going to be, I'm hoping that a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, you'll look back at the late season of 2018 and say that's when it started to get turned around. Who knows? Only time can tell. But,
right.
What I loved, I mean, Freddie Kitchens talked today about, my goal is to win the Super Bowl, because he said, I've been to the Super Bowl. He was a Cardinals assistant when they lost to the Steelers in that heartbreaker in 2008. He goes, I want to win.
Yeah.
And I just when I heard that today, I'm like, yeah, you're not just satisfied to get to one level.
Yeah.
You want everything.
Right. Well, yeah, and I think he also realizes the team is pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's on the cusp. With a lot of hard work in front of them, but it's on the right trail finally that you can see some of the work paying off, and it's paying off in wins. Better play, better players, with more to come, I would assume. And it just seems as though everything is in the right spot now, whether or not, I think ownership is comfortable with what they did. I think they had a good year. I think the Haslams had a good year finally.
I do too.
I
do too.
John Dorsey had a superb year. I think Greg Williams had a good year, and good luck to him. If it's with the Jets or Washington or wherever he goes, best of luck to him. He can walk out with his head held high. But Freddie Kitchens had an exceptional year, and now he gets the opportunity to build on that, and that's going to be exciting to watch. The other thing, Dino, is that he is really attracting good assistants to come
I was
with
going to say,
him.
what do you make so far of the people that have been announced, and especially in the 3 core positions, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special teams coordinator?
Well, I mean, the offensive coordinator is that's of great interest, because Freddie came right out today and said he was going to call his own plays. But Todd Monken is a pretty well-credentialed offensive coordinator and did a really good job in Tampa last year. I mean, the Buccaneers, I know, didn't have a good year. Dirk Cutter got fired. But remember, there was a lot of dysfunction there. But the problem really wasn't offensively.
No, he had to work with, he had the, you went from Fitzsimmons back to Winston, back to Fitzmagic. I mean, that was a tough situation for anybody to deal with.
It was, it really was. But, I mean, when they were all together, they could score. And he was the guy that was kind of calling the plays for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But he's coming here, and that's going to be interesting to watch how that works. Now, he got some head coaching interest in the offseason. Not a lot, but he did get a little bit. And I think he would have really had his pick of a number of teams to go and become the offensive coordinator, but he chose to come here knowing full well, and I don't think it's any surprise to him what Freddie said today. I'm sure that was discussed. I'm going to call the plays. So that's really interesting that he would accept the job,
right.
And it will be really interesting to see how it plays out. The defensive coordinator, I think they hit it out of the park.
I did too.
I mean, they got the guy that they wanted, Steve Wilkes, who had a bad year in Arizona as the head coach, but believe me, nobody could have bailed that situation out. That was a tough situation, a no-win situation that he turned into 3 wins, okay? But he is really a good defensive coach. He's been in a lot of places. He's a superb secondary coach, but then he got elevated to defensive coordinator. He'll keep them in the 4-3,
yes,
which is
so
what
important.
they're drafted, and their personnel fits that defensive scheme. So all of that is good. That's really good. Mike Prefer, he was in Minnesota. They needed special teams help.
Big time.
Across the board. That was a real letdown and a problem for them all year long, and it never really righted itself other than the punter. I mean, I thought that Britton Colquitt had a good year, but the kicking situation was unreliable and nerve-wracking, and they didn't cover.
Nope.
They didn't cover, and they really didn't return that well. And if they're going to play at a level where they're going to be in tight games and big games, they're going to have to be better in that area. So those are, but the fact, that he's really less than a week getting the job, Freddie, and he's got these things knocked off. That's a really good sign.
Yeah.
He's really got a great chunk of his staff in place.
That's big. As you kind of look at we talked about last week about the guys that were making the decisions. Everybody is on board with this hire.
Right.
At least that was my gut telling me that, but hearing what other people are saying, everybody was on. There was no split decision once they decided that this is the guy they're going to take to ownership, and Jimmy and Dee Haslam, this is who we want to hire. No problems.
No, I think they. There was another strong candidate in their minds, and that was Kevin Stefanski from Minnesota, and he earned the right to be interviewed a second time, and he was the only one that really got that. Freddie got a second call back, but Stefanski was brought back into town. I think he made a very, very strong case for himself, but they knew Freddie a little bit more, and the Baker Mayfield thing I think is very real, that Kitchens and Mayfield are very, very strong together. That's very important as this thing goes forward. But I think you're right. I think by the time that it was decision time, I think they were unanimous in going to the Haslams and saying, hey, this is the guy.
But what I liked, and John Dorsey talked about this today, this was a concern. And you and I, when this thing started, I know it was one thing I brought up with you, and we talked about it, that we saw this so much with LeBron James when he was young. You give the superstar a lot of say in what goes on in the organization. Sometimes it's good. More often than not, it's not good. While certainly I think they knew what Baker Mayfield thought of Freddie Kitchens. John Dorsey made it clear. It's like, hey, look, he's a rookie quarterback. He just got done with being a rookie quarterback. It was more important to let the guys in the front office make this decision. But I think Baker certainly would be happy that they came to this conclusion without having input.
Yeah, and the other thing, Dino, is so not only will they hold on to, at least schematically, the same defensive system, but the same offense will be here.
Yep.
And so he can grow into the offense because there's more growth opportunity for him there in the offense. And, as Freddie told Baker, no one is a finished product.
Right.
He's not as a coach, and Baker isn't as a quarterback. Tom Brady isn't even a finished product. He's always trying to strive to be a little bit better. That's what drives him to be 41 years old and still playing in an AFC championship game coming up on Sunday. So I think the comfort factor there, you're right. And the comfort factor with we're not going to change the system.
Right.
Why would you want to change the offense? It really worked well.
Well, and I know everybody was saying that, why would you change from what Greg Williams was doing?
Yeah.
Well,
it really wasn't that good by the end of the year.
I was going to say, the difference was the offense progressed.
Right, yeah.
The defense, injuries or not, the defense did not progress at the level the offense did. And you know what? Greg Williams doesn't need to apologize. He did a terrific job, and like you said, he's going to go somewhere and probably get a lot of money to be somebody's offensive coordinator slash assistant head coach.
Yeah, I think
he
so.
should.
Yeah. And, they'll be coming and getting some, right?
That's right. They'll be coming and getting some.
That's what they'll be doing there. Yeah, I think Greg, I think he did a really good job. I think that you're right. They were hurt, especially in the secondary throughout the year, and they were trying to, match people up. I think Ward being injured near the end of the year probably, hamstrung them a little bit of what they could do in the secondary, because they started to get really thin, when other people got hurt as the season went along. I mean, they were missing Randall, who really labored through a painful heel injury the entire year. I mean, they lost Mitchell for a long period of time. And then they lost Carey. They lost E.J. Gaines. And suddenly you really start, no team can survive that. So when the turnovers stopped coming in bushels, as they did in the first 6 or 7 games, some of that has to be, really, I think it's fair to say, the fact that they were banged up a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, really, really troubled them.
Well, now that the Browns have a head coach, we're heading towards championship weekend, 2 weeks from the Super Bowl, and then, we know what happens, Jimmy. You get into February and you start thinking about the combine, not as much for the Browns this year because they're not going to have to worry about, which quarterback looked the best in drills that day. But,
right.
And Freddie talked about, kind of the last thought, Freddie talked about it with you. It's bringing in, they're going to look at bringing in some more help in terms of players. But now this is the fun part. I mean, they know what they've got, and now they can really look ahead to 2019 to a goal and what they want to accomplish now. And now all the uncertainty's gone.
Yeah, this becomes like shopping season for them. And John Dorsey surprised everybody when shopping season got started a weekend earlier than expected when he made trades.
Absolutely.
Now, you got to look. They have a lot of draft picks. They have 11.
11 more,
yeah. And, watch that 5th round. They have 3 picks in the 5th round. I would really forecast that he'll do something with picks.
I think so too.
And do deals before he gets into free agency, just like he did last year. That will be very, very interesting to watch. The other thing is, it won't be as hard a pitch that you have to make to free agents to come here and play, because this is a team that's ready to go, and I think there are people going to be saying, hey, listen, I want to get there. I want to play there. I really want to get there.
I've got a chance to play, go challenge for a Super Bowl, win a division, go to the playoffs, challenge for a Super Bowl, and do so in front of a great fan base.
Yeah.
Come on down.
I mean, you take a look at the New England Patriots for years now. They've had guys who are very established. I mean, look at a guy like, it's tragic ending, but Junior Seau was a perfect example. A guy that, wanted to win a ring.
Yep.
Thought that he was on the track to do that a number of times in San Diego, but it didn't happen. And the Patriots took away his best opportunity one time when they knocked them out when they were the number 1 seed in the playoffs that year, and the Patriots went out to San Diego and beat them. But then he finally said, hey, I can't beat them. I'm going to join them, right?
I'm going to join them.
And I mean, that's happened to a lot of guys. Randy Moss goes
Rodney
there.
Harrison. Corey Dillon.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, these guys go there. And I'm not saying that we're going to get that level of player. I don't know if the Browns want to go that old. But they are going to get people that are going to say, you know what, I might take a little less, but I want to go to Cleveland. I want to play with that kid at quarterback. I want to play with Myles Garrett defensively and Denzel Ward. That looks pretty good to me.
Yeah, absolutely. The offseason really, now that Freddie Kitchens is your head coach, the offseason now can begin, and it's going to be a lot of fun here as the 2019 Cleveland Browns fill into shape. Jimmy, it's been a long day for you. Thank you for staying up, my friend.
You got it.
For David Herberton, for Jim Donovan, I'm Dave DiNatale. Thanks for watching the Donovan Live Postgame Show on WKYC's Facebook Live.